On September 1st, 1939, Hitler invades Poland with like 1 million troops, and it's kind of pissed off the British Prime Minister because he violated the Treaty of Versailles. So then the British Prime Minister was like, can you like maybe chill? And then Hitler was like, nah, we're doing it anyway.
Hitler proceeded to invade a bunch of places using blitzkrieg, which is like really fast invasions. And then Germany got into this really big battle with Britain, and they sent a bunch of planes to shoot down the other opponent's planes. I mean, I guess Britain won because they shot down all of Germany's planes, and Germany got really bummed out.
But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the U.S.
So on December 7th, 1941, Japan was like really mad that we kept giving them not oil. So they launched a sneaky attack at Pearl Harbor and threw some nasty bombs at some boats.
So the U.S. was like, yo, that's not cool. So we joined the war and decided to be chill with Soviet Union, Great Britain, and France. And we threw bombs back at Japan.
Once Hitler totally 86'd himself, the war in Europe was pretty much finito. The only problem was Japan, who kept trying really hard to take over the world. So we dropped 2 very nasty bombs on them, ending the war and some lives.
Japan had no choice but to be like, yeah, okay, fine, we surrender. Sorry for trying to take over the world. The problem was the bombs were super controversial, and a lot of people had different opinions on if we should have dropped them. Let's go ask people today what they think about this issue. We're here in West Hartford Center interviewing people about World War II. Do you think the U.S. should have dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Yes, I think they should have because it ended World War II.
That's a tough one. Well, I'm not going to second guess it, but, you know, I'm not sure. But you know, it's certainly ended the war, so it did what it was supposed to do.
Do you think the United States should have dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Yes.
Cool. Do you think there was any other way that we could have won the war?
Yes.
I guess it stopped the World War, and we've had pretty good peace since then, so it was a drastic decision, but luckily it sort of served its purpose.
That's a really tough question because it has so many layers. I believe yes. I believe it was the right thing to do. I know it was a horrible price to pay. And if you had asked me that question at the time, I probably would have said no, we shouldn't have done it. But knowing it pretty much ended things in Japan from there on, and knowing how quickly it ended things, I do think it was the right decision.
That's a really tough question.
Yeah.
I think looking back on it, it was probably the right decision only because in the long run, it probably would have saved more lives than it took away.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you never know.
Yeah.
You never know if you didn't drop the bomb, you know, how many lives would have been lost, how much longer the war would have been gone. But I think our president at the time probably made the best decision he could with what he knew and what, you know, all the advice he was being given. So, you know, I think, you know, he was doing it, I think, with that in mind, as far as, you know, what's the best, you know, best way to minimize the overall loss of life.
Do you think there was any other way to end the war other than drop the bombs on them?
I think they could have tried to work out a peace treaty first before dropping the bomb.
The problem was the loss of American lives versus the loss of the enemy's lives. That was the weight of the question, and that was the solution.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
All right.
They were a tough cookie, so they weren't going to give up easy. So there was pretty much a big bang, I guess you would call it.
I think that's an impossible question to answer because anyone can look back in retrospect and say, well, we should have done this, and if we had done this, then this would have happened, and it would have been an alternative. But that's easy to say because we wouldn't have known that at the time.
There would have been other ways. It's just a matter of how much longer the war would have taken.
Yeah.
And during those, you know, during that time, how many additional lives would have been lost on the U.S. side and the Japanese side, you know, no one knows that answer.
Yeah.
But I think there were definitely other ways. It's just a matter of whether, in the end, those other ways would have led to, you know, a greater or less loss of life.
Was it worth the civilian lives lost?
I think it was, even though it was a cruel thing to do, I think it was worth the lives.